All right, Betsy St. Amant, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Hi, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Your background is so cute. Where are you calling us from?
I actually use my mom's sunroom. They just renovated their house, and this is my mom's sunroom. So any Zoom thing, I just come here because it's so cute, right?
It is
Like, love it.
super cute. That is
I
so
love
funny.
it.
It looks like it could be right out of an HGTV. Uh,
Yeah,
that's so cool. So where are you calling us from?
I'm in Shreveport, Louisiana. So born and raised, been here my whole life. And yeah, it's still hot. I'm wearing a scarf because I just need some fall vibes.
I know, Louisiana, it's hard to get those fall vibes. We're in Texas, so it's
Oh,
similar struggles.
yes, absolutely. And it teases us. We'll have like 1 week of the high in the 60s, and then it's right back to 85.
Yep, exactly. Well, so Betsy, I was so fascinated as I was doing a little bit of research about you before this evening. I was so fascinated about how many books you have written and novellas. And I want to take you back in time to how you got started as a writer and talk a little bit about what inspired your writing and what keeps you going, because you've written 15 different books and novellas.
Yeah. Okay, so I started when I was 7. I would type these little plotless stories about a girl and her dog on our first home computer. They were kind of like journal entries almost. It was always a golden retriever because that's what we had. And then I kind of graduated into fan fiction, but at the time I didn't know fan fiction was a thing. I just thought, oh, I love Babysitter Club books. Let me just write my own. I had no idea. So I just kind of gradually, wrote more and more. And as a teenager, I thought, man, I really want to have a book published one day. That would be really cool, right? So I thought, okay, well, I have to do something about that. I can't just wish for it. So I started going to like writing conferences and taking classes. And I went to one, and it was a nonfiction speaking and writing group, but they had one little tiny fiction class over here on the side for all of us black sheep who wanted fiction. And so I attended that and made a connection with the teacher, who was famous author Gail Roper. She writes inspirational romance, and I don't even know how many books she's got out, but she knows what she's doing. And she kind of took me under her wing and said, if you want to make it further, she really recommended the ACFW, which is the American Christian Fiction Writers Group. Couple thousand members. It's just a wonderful network of authors, and there's a yearly conference where you can pitch your work to agents and editors, which is just as terrifying as it sounds. So I got the courage, went to my first conference, and as time went on, I got my first agent. We sold my first book when I was, I guess, about 24. And here we are now, some 13 years later. So it's been quite the journey. But yeah, I kind of like to always give that shout out to Gail Roper, because if she hadn't encouraged me, I might still be floundering around.
Yeah, you absolutely have to have those sort of inspiring, motivating voices, and seeing somebody that's done it and gives you that sort of path yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So did I answer all of that question? I know it was multi-parts. I don't know if I answered all of it right.
Yeah, no, that was great. So,
Okay.
but what's interesting too is that you also write romances. So it's like you're not just writing sort of books about faith, you have to add that sort of like really rich, deep character into there. What got you hooked on romances yourself, and what kind of stories do you like to tell in your different plots?
Yeah. So to the first part of that question, I first started wanting to write romance because I found a Robin Jones Gunn romance novel. She wrote the Christy Miller series and the Sierra somebody series, and just the Glenbrook was just the best Christian romance. And so I found that book on the floor of my sister's room. She had paid me to clean her room, and it was under a towel. And I thought, oh, what is this? This is no Babysitter's Club. I was probably 12 or 13 at the time, and I thought, oh, this sounds really good. And I started reading it, and then I wanted to read the next one. And I liked how the characters in this faith-filled romance were just so full of hope. And it was just a different perspective than what all my teenage friends were talking about with their boyfriends. And, it felt very pure and hopeful. And I thought, that's what I want. And that's what I would love for readers to feel from my stories. So that was kind of a starting point for me with the romance side, was Robin Jones Gunton's books. And then the second part of your question about, the readers, I'm kind of partial to like single moms and women who have maybe been burned in love or in romance. I always write with them in mind. And in this story, The Key to Love, one of my main side characters, Casey, she is a single mom who is finding love. And I just love that, because I went through that journey as well. I was a single mom for several years after an unwanted divorce. And that's just a soft spot for me with readers. And I always want to give them that same hope of, your story's not over yet.
Yeah, it's like the second chance. It's something that I saw sort of repeated in a lot of your stories, is that second chance and that hopefulness.
Yes, absolutely.
So another thing that's really cool, because we're getting close to the holidays, is that you also have a whole bunch of Christmas stories. I want to know how you get into, you got into the fall season right now with a little bit of a scarf and turtleneck situation, but how do you get into the spirit of Christmas when it's not Christmas time?
Right. So that's always an author's struggle, because if you're writing a Christmas book, you're usually writing it in the spring or summer to come out the next Christmas, whether you're indie publishing or whatever your schedule might be. Very rarely are you writing at Christmas for the next Christmas. So it is hard, especially in Louisiana. You're sitting there in shorts, sweating, with your AC blaring and trying to get in the Christmas spirit. So what I normally do is make like a cup of hot chocolate, and I'll just close the blinds, and tune out that sun, and just maybe put on a Christmas song or just something kind of fun and inspiring. And I'll actually usually read a Christmas novella, or just something to kind of get me in that mode of thinking of snow and, twinkle lights and all of that stuff. But yeah, it's hard.
Well, and I imagine too, like a Louisiana Christmas looks so different than like a Kansas Christmas or other places that you set your books. And like, just to jump right back into A Key to Love, which I know is not a Christmas book, but does take place in Kansas, but you're in Louisiana. Like, what sort of research did you do to create this town? And then, or is it a place that you've been to a bunch and you're able to draw from your own memories?
Yeah, so Story, Kansas is fictional. I made up the town, but I loved Kansas. I visited several years ago now. One of my dear friends lives there, and she showed us around. We got the whole tour of was it? Forgot exactly what city now. It's been a couple years. It'll come to me later. I'll sit up in the middle of the night and yell it. But she
You can email it to us. Don't worry.
And I just remember there were tulips everywhere. The downtown was so clean, and just, it felt like a book, and I loved the weather. I know that she's actually got 4 seasons being in Kansas, and here, Shreveport, we have maybe 1.5. Mm-hmm. So it just really inspired me to think, oh, this will be the perfect place for a small town in the fall with the leaves changing, and, kind of can make the weather whatever I need it to be, because there's that window of, you can't have a snowstorm in Shreveport. You just can't do it. So I felt like it kind of gave me a little bit more opportunity to play around with whatever I might need. But research wise, I normally, if I'm not familiar with somewhere, I will just ask friends who live there to send me some photos, or I'll research weather apps to kind of get an idea of their, average climate and things like that.
Bri has, like, she's been holding out for this epic love that is like her parents. Is her parents' journey and their love story based on anything in real life for you?
No, not particularly. I was just really intrigued by the idea of, a girl who has just put her parents on a pedestal, and maybe finding out some things that threaten that pedestal a little bit. And what would that look like? I just wanted to kind of play with that. Personally, I guess in a sense, it's a little relatable. My parents are still happily married after 30 something years, 38 years, maybe 39, which is, pretty rare these days. And so I do very much appreciate their love story. But I think the difference is Bri had hers on a very unhealthy, almost worship style of this is the standard and nothing else will do, because she didn't know any better yet.
Yeah. Well, and she has a great outlet of being a great chef and enjoying pastries and things. What sort of snack research did you do for all of the things that Bri comes up with?
Yeah, so I won't give any spoilers, but there is a secret ingredient that Bri is trying to find out throughout the story. She's baking her mother's macaron recipe, and it's very important to her because she's lost her mom. Her mom has passed away when she was younger, and she never figured out this recipe, and she's just kind of become obsessed with it. And she's off and on throughout the story is trying to figure out what was that missing ingredient. Like, why can't I figure it out? And so I had to Google and really research some different ingredient ideas because I have no idea how to make macarons, you guys. Like, no idea. It's all research. I like to cook. I'm not as good at baking. They say baking is more science, and cooking is more experimental. So with cooking, I can be, let's just add some of this. It'll be fine, but you can't do that with baking. So my mom is a wonderful baker, though. So I've really pulled from some of her recipes and experiences over the years.
Yeah, baking requires a lot of attention to detail. And sometimes you just want to improvise and make up some stuff.
Yes, exactly.
Well, Betsy, we are going to enter into our rapid fire questions portion. So I'm just going to ask you some random questions and you answer them however you feel.
Okay.
Nothing scary or pressurous. I just had to pull it up. Okay, here we go. All right. So Betsy, what is your favorite trope to read?
Ooh, okay. If I had to pick one, I would say friends to lovers. That's my favorite.
And then what is your favorite trope to write?
Second chance.
All right. So something that you've learned or done during the pandemic.
Ooh, okay. Well, I'm trying to think. I learned I can do a lot more writing than I thought I could, time-wise. I've learned, you know what? I can really crank out some words if I'm really motivated to do so. Just having less responsibilities and things that we could do, having that kind of cleared off my plate, I was like, oh, I can really write this faster. So I kind of learned a little bit of my own ability was, or my own speed was, I was the hindrance to that, so that was kind of neat to realize, I can get this stuff done faster if I really am trying.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great lesson to learn. That's fantastic. All right, let's see. So who was your first book boyfriend?
Ooh, this is a hard one. Probably Todd from Christy Miller series, the Robin Jones Gun. Everybody loves Todd.
I love it. All right, let's see. Oh, if you were stuck in an elevator, with whom would you want to be stuck?
Ooh. Okay, so my first thought goes to Tom Hanks. Not in a
yeah, now I was like, now you have to explain.
Yeah, platonic Tom Hanks. I think it would be fascinating conversation, and I think he'd have a very reassuring presence that it'll all be okay and we can just talk until they save us.
Yeah. I wonder who is the Tom Hanks for Tom Hanks sometimes, who calms the calm.
Yes. That's great.
Oh, that's great. Have you seen, you've obviously seen You've Got Mail, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Okay. And I have to go a quick plug because you opened that door wide open. Mm-hmm. My next book with Ravel comes out next October, and it's actually, I'm pitching it as You've Got Mail meets Food Truck Wars. So Yay! It's so fun, you guys. It comes out next October. I'm so excited about it. So yes, I'm a huge You've Got Mail fan.
So did you have that? Oh, that's going to be so much fun. And now you have more snacks in your books. Is this just a common thread at this point?
It kind of is. I had a couple of books with Thomas Nelson. They were, it was Zondervan at the time. They all merged, but it was called All's Fair in Love and Cupcakes. And then the sequel was Love Arrives in Pieces. And there was baking in both. And then now The Key to Love. So now for the next book, we're getting out of the bakery and into a food truck. So it's a little different, but still kind of a fun vibe.
Yeah, I love it. That's so cool. All right. Well, good. I can't wait to see that next year. It's going to be a fun read. All right. Are you a pantser or a plotter?
Plotter. I tried to pants my way through a little story during pandemic and realized, okay, I can crank this out, but this is bad. I have no idea where this is going. I'm not as motivated to write if I don't have a plan. So I need at least a loose plot, and then I can, have room for experimenting throughout that structure.
Yeah, a lot of discipline there.
Yes.
Sarah, you had a question.
What kind of food? Yes. What kind of food trucks?
Mexican food.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Okay. And hey, you guys are the first to know, outside of my family, the first to publicly hear the title. I got permission today to share it just in case it came up tonight. So it's called Tacos for Two.
Tacos
Oh, that is so
for
cute.
two.
Tacos for Two next October.
Oh my gosh. What are you envisioning for the cover?
Oh, I don't know. We've been discussing ideas. I would love a food truck on the front. There's very much a competition vibe between the hero and heroine. So I almost picture, I don't know that they're going to be able to do this, but some kind of like close up of like an arm wrestle, like something to show like a competition, but I have no idea what they're going to come up with. But they did such a good job on this cover, The Key to Love. I was so impressed that I have full faith it'll be perfect.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. Oh, that was a question I had that will go back, but you have in the book a Lovelock Wall inspired from the actual Lovelock. Have you had a chance to go to Paris and see the Lovelock Wall in person?
I have not, but interesting little fact. When I first started writing this book, or really brainstorming it, was a couple of years ago. And I was going to set part of the story in Paris. I hadn't quite figured out all the details yet. I start writing and Paris shuts down the real one. They decide it's an eyesore, it's dangerous. So they removed all of it and replaced it with panels. And I was like, y'all couldn't have waited like one more year. But it was good because that forced me to get creative and kind of create this character in the small town Midwest to make her own version. Mm-hmm. So it all worked out for the best, but I was like, what are the odds? So no, I never made it to see the real ones. I'm very disappointed about that.
Oh, wow. All right, let's see. Okay, so what is your favorite book to recommend to a new reader of contemporary romance?
Ooh, okay, so I have authors I recommend more so than one particular title. Okay. So I go to contemporary romance authors that I recommend are Becky Wade, and she has a new series out called Misty River. The second one's coming out, I think, in a couple of months. And then her series right before this one was the Bradford Sisters, and it was so great. Her characterization is just the best. You feel like these people are living, breathing. You miss them when the book is over. So I highly recommend Becky Wade. And then in a similar vein, I recommend Courtney Walsh. And she has several books out now too with Tyndale. So those are two. Oh, and Melissa Tagg. I don't know if y'all are familiar with her. She's gone indie. She used to write for a publisher, and she's the last couple of years been doing her own, and they are fantastic. And she's got one, I think came out a couple of months ago, called Now and Then and Always. And it's romance is the main thread, but there's a good little side mystery too, which I always like in my romances. That's something else going on. So I think readers of The Key to Love would very much like both of those authors.
Cool, great. Well, so speaking of The Key to Love, what is a character in the book that you would like to? Who is a character in the book that you would like to be friends with?
Oh man, I really like my side character Casey, the one that was the single mom who was kind of getting her second chance at love. I feel like she's kind of the voice of reason through the story, and she has kind of the most reason to not be reasonable, if that makes sense. She's been through so much. She's got young kids. She's on her own, and yet she's just found this settled grace and wisdom that she can share with Bri and with others in the town. So I really like her. I think she'd be a good influence on me.
Was she one of your most challenging secondary characters to write?
No, she was pretty simple. It was really fun writing Mabel and Agnes, the two eccentric sisters who own the bakery. They were really fun to write. So they were pretty simple too. I mean, honestly, I feel like one of the hardest characters probably was Bri. I've always written the male point of view so much easier. It's so strange. I guess I can just imagine what I would want the guy to do or say.
Mm-hmm.
Think about your real life
Get to be
spouse.
an extra control there. Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, Bri was probably the trickiest character because she just had so much going on internally, and I wanted to do it all justice. I wanted her character arc to really be natural and relatable for readers. So she was very important to me to get right.
What is the best advice you've ever received?
Ooh. Thinking back to those days when I was a single mom and kind of going through that hard time in my life. Two things. One, funny first, I was had kind of a mentor in the writing industry, and he had kind of helped walk me like an uncle through some of this, and was praying for my ex at the time, and just a very solid voice of reason for me. And I remember I saw him at a writers conference about a year after our divorce was over, and he asked for an update, and so I told him, and so he's sitting there in a chair, and he's just so wise and very, very Tom Hanksy, if that makes sense. So he's sitting there, and he looks up, and he's like, when I think about your ex, and I'm ready for this wisdom, this nugget of life-changing, inspiration. He says, when I think about your ex, I just really want to punch him in the face. And that was actually really comforting at the time. So sometimes you just need that. But on a serious note, I think some of my best advice has come from, you can't control other people. I can't control my ex's decisions. I can't control the way my kids react. I can only control me, and I can only help them get through it and do their best. It's not on me. I'm not actually carrying the whole world right here. So that's probably the best advice I received during that season. That carries over now. I'm remarried. I have a stepdaughter. We're homeschooling for the first time, and I still need that advice that I can't control everyone else. I'm not responsible for the whole world. It's okay.
Yes, it takes some of that bulk off of your shoulders for sure.
I think we could all use that this year, especially. It's been a crazy year.
Well, now that Tom Hanks has come up twice, have you ever thought, has he inspired any of your characters in any of your books?
He has not. I guess because maybe the age difference. Normally my heroes are younger, but he would make a fantastic older character, I think, in one of my books. I'll have to mull that over for later.
Love it.
So Gerard in The Key to Love was actually based off Gerard Butler, the actor.
So dreamy.
Yes, the whole leather jacket, kind of scorned permanent bachelor vibe. And that's probably my second favorite trope. Going back to that question, is opposites attract. I really love that instant conflict, that having the scorned permanent bachelor and the romance obsessed girl, just immediately butt heads. So It's fun.
So if you weren't a writer, especially since you started writing so young, if you weren't a writer, what would you do? Have you ever thought about that?
Well, probably either English teacher route or maybe librarian. I've always just loved books and probably would do something with books or language and words. So I don't know. I've been trying to teach my 7th grader how to diagram sentences. So I don't know if I would have made it as an English teacher. She would probably say, no, don't do it. But I have another friend who's going through school to be a librarian, and I'm fascinated with it, and I'm excited for her. And I used to go, my grandmother worked our church library for most of my life. So as a child, I'd go up there on Tuesdays. I was homeschooled a lot, and help her in the library and just check out books. And that was when we had a card catalog, when they used stamps, it was all really fun and tangible. So I have sweet memories of that. So probably something in the library.
Oh, that's fun. What was your favorite job to do at the library when you would work there?
I actually liked shelving the books that people would return, putting them back where they go, and maybe choosing one to pull out and display. We're all guilty of that now in bookstores. When you see one of your author friends on the shelf, you just kind of put that out and turn it around.
I would have, if I worked in a library, I'd have the hardest time not stopping every 5 minutes and reading all the time.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What motto do you live by?
Ooh. Well, I have this on my email signature, And it's a quote from Isaac Asimov, and it says, "I write for the same reason I breathe, because if I didn't, I would die." And I feel that very strongly. I feel like writing for me, it's not just a hobby or a career or even a ministry. It's therapy. I'm not nice to be around if I haven't written something in a long time. It just gets everything out of here and into something more tangible, and hopefully that someone else can benefit from,
Do you have a hard time reading in your genre when you're writing?
A little bit. I normally will try to read a different genre just kind of for escape, because I don't ever want to kind of confuse voices, especially if it's someone who I already know we're a little similar in style anyway. So normally I'll go to like a historical romance or a mystery. I've been reading Jamie Jo Wright's books. I don't know if y'all have heard of her. She is super creepy suspense. And it's still Christian fiction, but it's just scary enough without being too much. And I love it. So I've been kind of reading that because that's so far outside of what I write that it's pure escape, and I love it.
Okay, so our last question for you before we switch over to our Q&A portion, we asked everybody at the top to do the name game, and I would like to now know what you have been watching, reading, and listening to recently.
Okay, so I just finished reading Jamie Jo Wright's newest. It's called The Haunting of Bonaventure Circus. Super creepy.
Yeah, it's a creepy name. Ooh.
Yeah, and the cover, it's like this torn circus poster. Oh, it's so good. So I just finished reading that, and I'm about to start reading Catherine Ray's newest one. She writes, it's more women's fiction, and all of her books have an Austen vibe. Love it. Absolutely love it. So that's kind of what I'm reading. You said watching?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so me and my husband have been binging Poldark. We're way late. I know it's been out for a while. There's like 5 seasons. We're still on season 1. We're like 7 episodes in. And we are so hooked. It's a really good show. It's French Revolution times. And I mean, every episode is just, oh my gosh, just so dramatic, and it's great. So that's what we're watching. And what was the third one?
Listening to. It could be audio, it could be audiobook, podcast, music, anything that you're kind of just been enjoying for your ears.
Yeah. Trying to think. I occasionally listen to Alyssa Childers has a podcast for just kind of a Christian woman, different topics in the church and stuff. I don't listen to a lot. I feel like I'm never alone enough homeschooling my kids and working from home and writing to just have long and uninterrupted time to listen to anything. And I'm one of those authors who doesn't listen to music when she writes. It's like 2 sides of my brain warring against each other. So I actually kind of love some silence when I can get it. But I do have favorite songs in the car. We've been listening to the Hamilton soundtrack a lot with the kids driving around town. So you could probably just say Hamilton is pretty much it.
Hamilton. That sounds, that's a great pick. If you're only going to listen to one thing, let it be Hamilton.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, Betsy, before we end our interview, I'd love for you to tell readers how they can find out more about you and stay in touch with you.
Sure. So my website is the best place to go for a little bit of everything. It's www.betsysaintamont.com. There's no period in the Saint. It's just all run together. And that's where you can sign up for my newsletter. I do monthly newsletters. I don't bug you too much. There's always some kind of fun giveaway. I love to give away books, my books, other people's books, gift cards. It's really fun. So you can sign up for that. You can email me through there as well. I love connecting with readers. Or even aspiring authors. If I can help be a Gail Roper to you and encourage you on your path, I'd love to do that. It's an honor. So yeah, my website's pretty much where it's at. I'm also on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. So I'm kind of everywhere.
Great. Well, perfect. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate it, Betsy.
Yeah, thank you.